founder of B.E.L.L.E. I'm also a 3 times tech startup founder with 1 access, and I'm currently a venture partner at B.E.L.L.E. We are a family office. We invest in VCs and early stage startups. I'm also a startup mentor at Plug and Play Seattle. So what is B.E.L.L.E.? B.E.L.L.E. is a nonprofit organization empowering female founders. Our mission is to ensuring every tech startup has at least 1 female founder. So far we have connected over 25,000 people and have supported over 600 startups. Collectively, they have raised over 1 billion. So in our community, we have first-time founders with multiple access, investors, founder fund, and corporate executives. So our headquarters is actually in Seattle, and we also have chapters in San Francisco, and we host the event in LA. We have existed over 8 years already. Yeah. So here is our upcoming event. If you're interested, feel free to subscribe our calendar. So we have AI hackathon, we have AI workshop, and AI Founders and Investors Summit in October, and following with another AI hackathon with AWS. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome today's panelists. Come to the stage. Dorothy, Yifan, Robert, and Greg. Please come to the stage. So how many of you guys are startup founder? Raise your hand. All right. So how many of you are investors? Angel investors, VCs? Okay. So how many of you are corporate professions? So yeah, raise your hand. How many of you are aspiring entrepreneurs? Okay, cool. It sounds very balanced today. All right, so I would love to start with a self-introduction for all the panelists. You want to start with Yifan? Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, Anna. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Yifan Zhang. I am currently the managing director at AI2 Incubator, which was born from the B.E.L.L.E. Institute for AI. So this topic is very relevant. We do a lot of development, especially turning research into actual AI products. Before coming to AI2, I was also a 2-time founder. I started one of the top mobile fitness apps in the first wave of iPhone apps called Gympact. And I was also the CEO of Loftium, which is a PropTech affordable housing company that was acquired by Fly Homes here in Seattle. So after those experiences, I now help a lot of founders go through everything from product discovery, product market fit, all the way through to fundraising.
Really amazing. I actually know Li a little bit. You guys do great work at AI2. But I'm Dorothy. Before I start, I just want to thank Anna and apologize for being late. I need an agent to tell me where to find parking. I'm Dorothy. I'm currently the corporate vice president at Microsoft, specializing in AI for security, particularly in cybersecurity, as AI becomes part of our life here, and attackers definitely are using AI. My team's role is really to arm defenders with AI and also build out an ecosystem. Prior to Microsoft, I was at a startup, a local startup called Convoy. Some of you may know. I was Convoy's CTO, and prior to Convoy, I spent many years at Amazon in various roles, from building out Amazon's e-commerce platform, Prime, to spend the latter 10 years or so at Amazon Web Services, scaling AWS. Very, very great to be here, and again, thank you, Anna. I've known you for a while now, and it's great to see the B.E.L.L.E. community here.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for inviting me, Anna. And I'm Greg Coquillo. I am a product leader at AWS. What I do is I accelerate the network infrastructure for the whole business. And I'm supporting mostly the AI ML infrastructure. Just think about when we're training a lot of those LLMs or our customers, and they need distributed systems, ways to communicate fast across GPUs, etc. I make sure that as I scale, I don't prevent any outages. So if your Netflix goes down, I will point the finger to someone else. So, yeah. So prior to that, also I'm very present in the LinkedIn community. I have more than 200,000 followers. I am a 2-time top voice for AI ML. Find me there. I share AI insights on a daily basis. Over around Seattle, San Francisco, I host a lot of AI happy hours and events for executive dinners as well. And also, I am an investor. I am a general partner in a small boutique fund, and I love talking to founders. I love advising founders, talk about embarking in their journey, understanding the problems they're solving, etc. But yeah, so prior to that, I was leading products for a pharmaceutical company, and I also have a background in manufacturing. So originally from Haiti, so I'm super honored to be here, and looking forward to connecting to a few of you after the session.
Thanks, Anna, and it's my honor to be here. Thanks, everyone. Recently, I actually talked to AI much more than humans, and so I feel I really want to come to the events to get back my communication skill with AI, with humans. So my name is Robert, and I'm a founder and the CEO of B.E.L.L.E, and we are a Seattle-based startup, has been here for a very long time. When we started, we mostly focused on the blockchain technology and the decentralized applications. And 2 years ago, we started to enter the large language model in the AI-GC space. And we recently built one of the AI agent framework called Agent. It's very, pronounced very similar to agent, but that is a word in Irish. It actually means spirit. It's also a French term. And so basically what our company do is mostly on the developer side. If you are a founder, if you are an engineer, you're interested to build the real world applications, and come talk to me or come to visit our website. And yeah, so honored to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. So before we started, I actually want to ask something fun. So can you guys share one fun fact that we couldn't find it on your LinkedIn profile? You want to start first?
Top of mind, I guess I just came back from Europe. I just took an amazing trip to Greece and Turkey. I'm still very jet lagged, so apologies for any comments made here.
Well, here's a fun fact. I also came back from Greece. Everyone seems to be Greece this year. Yeah.
Everyone.
Fun fact, I'm a runner, but I have not run a marathon until last year. And prior to last year, I ran 0 marathon. But then in November, I ran a New York marathon. My partner couldn't run with me because he caught COVID at the last minute. Then he said, I gotta run a marathon with you before the end of the year. Guess what marathon you can run between November and January? It's a Seattle marathon. So I went from 0 to running 2 marathons in a month. I do not recommend doing that.
Oh, so fun fact about me. I enjoy food. I connect with people's culture through food a lot. And recently I went to Japan with my family. I took my kids. And I fell in love with the food, fell in love with the people. So much that I'm starting to evaluate what it means to live temporarily there. So I'm thinking about that. I just love the Asian culture, and Japan particularly just put a mark on my soul, and maybe I can dig a little bit deeper in there to see what I can find. But overall, I love traveling, and I love connecting with people, music, food, and basically because of my background, I love to understand why people eat. And this is a particular way of life that they have. So other than that, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, so I would like to share a contact. Definitely not in my LinkedIn, but you guys probably will be surprised because I built one of the earliest AI astrologer app. So astrology. So it's actually in the App Store, and it actually works pretty well. And for example, today when I come here, I ask my AI astrologer, what it looks like for today's event. The event is predict that I'm going to get some new partners here. So let's see. Let's see if this will become real.
Are you guys can hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's start with the question. Okay, so I actually want to start with Dorothy. And first of all, I would love to thank you. You have been so supportive to me. So she was one of my keynote speakers before pandemic as my young entrepreneur and the professional summit. And after pandemic, when she was the CTO of Convoy, she also be a panelist. And now today, as a CVP of Microsoft, she's here to support me. So I'm so appreciate. Thank you so much. So the first question for you is, you have led the technology at startups like Convoy and also large companies. So what's the biggest difference? Okay, so what's the biggest difference you have seen testing AI in the lab versus like implement it at a global scale?
Thanks for that. And by the way, supporting you is supporting a community of startups and female startups. It's really near and dear to my heart and to all of our hearts. And I think, Yifan, you'll have interesting things to say about that. And certainly from where I stand, I can talk about like lab to production. There's some traditional ways of looking at it, but I think it's sort of blurring with AI. And certainly when you are building products in a lab, and we have this concept at Convoy as well, which is that you have this funnel, you're building things for speed. You want to achieve product, you want to do it very quickly, do a POC, and also try to see if there's a product market fit and just let that product grow. And when you're in production, and I see that every day at Microsoft, at global scale, not just, and cybersecurity products, not just how the product performs, but the issues of governance, data security, cost, and efficiency all comes into play. And in this day and age with AI agents, customers ask us every day, how is Microsoft, how's your company protecting my data? Where are you securing, how are you securing your data? How's data being audited? And then very soon comes with that is, what is the cost? So those things are front and center, and you're building for production, for scale. It has to be built from day one to have that enterprise governance, cost, efficiency in mind. And obviously it's a different thing if you're not building for the enterprise, but you are building for the enterprise, building at that global scale. Resiliency obviously is another one that you have to think about as well. And I'm sure in the US we think about this, I still say in the US, you think about this every day.
I guess maybe our experience at AI2 Incubator is less from the global scale side, but from kind of the transition from research lab into the startup world, which I think also reflects some of these similarities. We do these lunches and talks with our AI2 researchers and connecting them with founders all the time. We also have 2 companies that are a team of AI2 researchers that are now founders. So it's very interesting to see that transition, right, and the differences. I think the number one thing that we talk about in these lunches is, as a researcher, you really don't care about some of these things that Dorothy was talking about. Like, you don't care about cost, you don't care about things like latency, even performance. It's really about top of the line performance, right? You're trying to push the envelope in terms of how good the models can be without needing to pay attention to real world constraints. And transitioning, especially from lab into startups, that is a pretty big shock for a lot of researchers, right? The pace that you have to work, and also all the constraints that come with now, not having money, not having a world-class team, not having reputation. You suddenly have to 80-20 a lot of things, right? So you can't be perfect, you can't take forever, you can't spend 10 years, right, trying to focus on research and publishing a paper. So there is a pretty large difference, and maybe in the larger companies it's kind of somewhere in the middle, but that transition directly into startups, I think is quite a shock for a lot of AI researchers.
Thank you, Yifan. I have a follow-up question. So you are, a serial founder, so you have successfully built a company and sold them to the big company. So what is the number one lesson you have learned from your startup journey that you think that might apply to other founders?
Yeah, for me, I often look for in founders and help to coach speed of iteration. I think the typical path in large companies, I actually have never worked for anyone. I went to Harvard undergrad and then started my first company right after graduation, so you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But I do see this because we work with a lot of founders that come from big tech. And I think the expectation is that you go from A to B, right? And it's a straight line. You're trying to move as efficiently and quickly as possible in this straight line. And being a startup founder is completely the opposite. Like I learned, and I encourage people to think about it more as being an explorer, right? You start with A, you kind of have a vague idea of where you're going, but you don't really know where you're going, and you definitely don't know the path. So every day you're trying to run experiments. Every thought that you have should be treated as a hypothesis, and you're testing it as quickly as you can so you can navigate this path, right, and draw that out to see where you're going to end up. And it's a kind of uncomfortable skill to practice, but like for example, both of my companies had to go through iterations before I found product market fit. My first company was a mobile app that used financial incentives to motivate fitness. So we were the app that actually charged you for not exercising and paid you if you did. We got the app to profitability within 1 year of launch. We were like the viral app of 2012, way back when. But we started as a concept around loss aversion, and we applied it to physical gyms at the beginning. Right? We're like, we're going to partner with gyms, we're going to implement these financial incentives at physical locations, and we had to iterate out of that into a purely mobile fitness app, and also add in the positive incentives versus just having the negative incentives. So I offer this just as an example where founders need to do this all the time, often multiple times in order to find the right path. And that is the thing that you can work on, right? Even if you're not a founder, but definitely you're forced to work on if you are a founder.
That's very practical advice. So now let's turn to Robert. You are also a serial entrepreneurs, and you have been through multiple tech waves, internet, social network, blockchain, and now AI agent. So what's the biggest lesson you have learned from choosing the right timing to launch?
I think that's a very good question. So for me particularly, and I always ahead of time, do things too early. So I think the lesson I learned is, first of all, if I do that again, I will still do ahead of time. I still will do, because as a founder, to start a founder, I think the most important thing is follow your heart. You want to do something, you want to make it happen. I always, encourage, my colleague and anybody who are in the startup community, that forget about all the noises, forget about all those kind of advice from VCs or whatever. Do something that you're really passionate at it, right? So if you do something early, even the market is not ready, but keep doing that. Someday, the market is there. Right? So this happened to me for many, many times, and so honestly, I'm not kind of a super kind of a business oriented. I just do something interesting, and sometimes it's early, but just keep doing that for a while. Oh, opportunity is there. So that's how I capture like the blockchain opportunity and also the AI opportunity. It looks like a little bit early, but since I keep doing that, the opportunity is there. Right? I just want to kind of reflect what Yifan said. My experience is I also did my first startup straight out of college. So I never worked for anyone for the first decade. But eventually I went to Microsoft. It's kind of reverse path. Have two startup, two exit, and then I eventually moved to Microsoft and go to the big company to kind of try to, I believe the biggest question at the time why I joined Microsoft is I tried to kind of fix one of the problem every time. As a small startup, I always feel, okay, this big company, they're so scary, they have infinite resource. My experience or lesson learned in Microsoft for 5 years at Microsoft, in different teams, including the product team and the research team, I found that every mistakes that I made in my startup, Microsoft, have the same mistakes and probably 10x worse. But the reason why Microsoft can be so good, I think there's two reasons. One reason is they have a revenue engine. They can always stay alive. Microsoft actually makes probably 10x more problems, mistakes than startup, but they have much better revenue engine. That makes them be able to last. So as long as they are not dying, and they can fix. I think the second thing is really focus on the high quality hiring, because Microsoft has really high quality employees. Everybody is so good, even people are fighting with each other, but for good. So eventually, when the new opportunity comes, and it's going to be good. So that's why I become much more confident when I leave Microsoft and do my new startup, because I kind of feel fearless.
Thank you, Robert. And so now it's your turn, Greg. So you have scaled AI system from prototype to large-scale use. So what is the common mistake startups make in that journey?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think one of the common mistakes that I've seen in the startup world is really thinking that a prototype can quickly go to production without any problem. I think I heard Dorothy, you get Yifan, you both mentioned some of that. That's a critical mistake. So in the prototyping world, you can get away with manual labeling of data, small data pipelines, or even small infrastructure. But when you get to the real world, a lot of the things, they change quickly. And oftentimes it comes into a shock by founders. There are three things typically that I see that they overlook. Those are data, overfitting the demo, and then ignoring the infrastructure cost. So when I think about data, as startups try to grow, they really need to implement solid frameworks, solid mechanisms to maintain, govern, refresh that data, and making sure that there are some solid operations around it to really measure the quality of that data as they grow. The other stuff, the overfitting of a demo, this is kind of like a good and a bad thing. A good thing because they're focusing on a specific problem and they want to tailor a demo around that. And oftentimes they forget everything else that will happen in the real world. They forget to fit this demo into a new use case that matters more in the real world. And oftentimes this demo fails when they try to launch. And finally, when I think about infrastructure cost, I'm thinking about what about latency? What are the differences that you have from running a small demo in a Google Colab environment to something that is launched to production when thousands and thousands of users are making API calls? In this sense, latency matters the most, or even cost per inference, or GPU utilization, and things like that. So when you start from the beginning to think about your company scaling going into the future, what are the things that you can build? How can you design that for future success? Those are the things that I've seen startups do and fail, and hopefully, more and more will come forward and share their learnings around that space so that most of these startups can succeed as they grow.
Thank you. So let's circle back to Dorothy. So Dorothy, look ahead. So what excites you most about the next wave of AI? Not just making progress of the efficiency, but making the world fundamentally safer.
What a broad question. I'm sure all of us all have many, many thoughts. I've been in technology for just a few years, and so I got to participate in the not so much as the PC era when Bill Gates was tinkering in I guess late science where he started, but certainly in the transition to mobile and then cloud and now to AI. What I find in each of these waves is really interesting. There's technology, people, and process. And what makes me really optimistic is just like what we saw with cloud. And at the beginning, there was a lot of fear and doubt, and it was all about cost. And what really happened is as we transitioned to cloud, it was not just the cloud, it was just not the efficiency part, it was also the agility that it gave, right? And so it was, hey, before a startup, you had to go, now you could go rent compute in the cloud, and you can now have 2 guys in a garage and then maybe 20 people and build a startup. With AI, we can literally have a 1-person startup that go from prototype to production with everything being AI and cloud driven. And so that makes these technologies not just a cost efficiency enabler, but also a force multiplier, meaning that it can really impact both the top line and the bottom line. And I think before AI was, when you think about AI circa 2022, is that when ChatGPT first burst into the scene, and before it was machine learning and transformer, to now AI agents, where we take cybersecurity as an example. When we first started things like Security Copilot in 2023, it was doing things that natural language can do. You can summarize an incident. But now we're really seeing, for the first time, we're giving organizations the ability where it could be like an immune system. You're not just defending, you can actually be proactive, and you can adapt, you can learn, and the ability for the agent to reason, right, which was never very, which is very crude at the beginning. Now we're seeing this revolution of reasoning, or our friend Madrona calls the reasoning flywheel, the reasoning revolution. Now intelligence is becoming a commodity. Then what can you do? I think it's incredibly empowering for founders, for business users alike.
Thank you, Dorothy. Yeah, so definitely I felt like that it's a lot easier right now to start a company, like a 1-person company. But I want to ask the question to Yifan. Actually many founders, they're still struggling with when to pivot. You have been through like multiple companies, so what is your advice on that?
Yeah, so pivoting is a very important skill. And actually, Greg, something you talked about the scalability. Well, I'll just talk really loudly. So Greg was talking about kind of the scalability, right, side of companies. And I think that we work with really, really early stage companies because we're an incubator, so we start from day 0. And I think scalability is actually, it's a luxury to be able to focus on once you have that product market fit, right? And often I see a lot of actually technologists start too early with scalability before they even know, hey, have I actually found a need? Have I found a way to actually satisfy that need for my customers? So we do a lot of work in terms of having, sorry, can people hear me? I'm not super loud, but. Yeah. Okay, I'll try to yell. So we work with founders in terms of really going deep in customer interviews early, right? Before you build anything, or even like once you build a very simple prototype on something like Lovable or Bolt, being able to get that in front of customers to actually get real feedback. Okay, great. Hopefully you can hear me. So we want to make sure that you're putting your prototype, your non-scalable prototype, right, that probably has like horrible security, like does not have the right data structures, get that as quickly as possible in front of customers and get real feedback and iterate quickly. One misconception around pivots is I think people often think that pivoting means you're going from like a game all the way to Slack, right? Or going completely different industries. Often what we see with pivoting is actually these are micro adjustments within an existing industry, right? Maybe you're adjusting your product, maybe you're adjusting your ICP, your initial customer profile, right? It's the same product, but you're going towards one go-to-market strategy versus another. So these are not very large changes, but they make a huge impact in terms of whether your startup will ultimately be successful. To give you some concrete examples, my second company was a affordable housing startup called Loftium. We had a host-to-own product that allowed renters to save up a down payment through short-term rental hosting that then allowed them to own a home outright. We eventually spread to 10 markets. We had over 150,000 renters stay at Loftium's, but we initially started with a concept around a down payment. We actually partnered with Fannie Mae to be able to launch a down payment product that let anyone utilize Loftium funds for their down payment if they would turn part of their home into a short-term rental. Our core technology was the same. We had a machine learning team and model that was able to be very predictive of both short-term and long-term rental income, but the format of that product changed significantly over time. The down payment product was really appealing and viral, easy to tell that story, right? We were actually featured in the New York Times. We had over 10,000 people sign up in the first week when we launched, but it actually turned out to not solve the customer's problem. The down payment is the first issue that many homeowners run into, but it's not the only issue. Like once we solved the down payment, we found that there was actually additional issues like credit score, like income validation, right, that prevented our customers from actually becoming homeowners when we provided them with just the down payment. So then we had to quickly iterate on that concept to, instead of just offering a down payment at the moment of home purchase, we actually now started a rental product that allowed you to be renting, that allowed you to save the down payment over time, and then correct the other issues over the course of 1 to 3 years so that you could become a homeowner with lock-in. And that's a pretty small adjustment where we didn't change up the team or technology at all. We didn't even change up the space or the concept or most of the messaging. It was really just a product adjustment that allowed our customers to actually access our product. So often when we look at companies, especially at the incubator, right, we don't encourage people to just go left, right, different industries, not utilize any of the learnings that you have from your existing product. Often we encourage people to focus on the actual problems and try to solve them step by step so that your product, right, can actually get into the hands of your customer.
Awesome. Thank you, Yifan. Now let's turn to Robert. So, as we mentioned before, you have been through many tech waves. Well, I would like to know what will see the strongest opportunity for the intersection of the decentralized and AI in the next few years?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question. And honestly, I think this is the biggest opportunity for the real AI. Because if you already tried all those kind of ChatGPT and AI stuff, you see how scary it is. Imagine for the internet, during the internet age, when we see internet, we see, oh great, the internet have all the resources and the social network, they're awesome. But what end up we are become their product. So the Facebook, big companies, they take our data, they use our data for advertising, and it looks like the free internet is kind of big, but actually the cost of, we lost our data, we lost our identity, all of those come back to the large companies, and those large companies, they are more scary than the government, right? Even a president can be banned by a tech company just because of political reason. Political opinion is different, right? So if the AI eventually become the infrastructure of the society, and the AI is controlled by those large companies, no matter they are OpenAI, Google, or Microsoft, this is super scary. I think the way to defend that is actually go back to let the users take back their identity, their data, their property and include their own AI. So I predict that eventually people will wake up because take the lesson from the internet that we lost our identity in the data, and take the advantage of what we learned from blockchain technology and crypto, that nobody can take your assets so easily, even the government, even a large company, because the algorithm, the technology protect us to give back the freedom of control of what belongs to us. Right? So I believe that AI right now is at the intersection that more and more people will realize. First of all, is a great technology that is going to eventually change every aspect that our life. The other part is AI is super dangerous. If AI eventually completely controlled by some large company or by the government, it could be, it's really, really dangerous. But what we can do as the founders, and we can see this trend, we can build this decentralized AI using new technology to make sure that in the future, each of those AI agents, they're not loyalty to the other company, they're only loyalty to you, right? So imagine there's a very kind of a popular dilemma, it's called like the cable car dilemma, right? So in the cable car, if this cable car is controlled by AI, so when something happens, is it going to decide to save you in the car, or is it going to decide to save the people, on the road? So it's basically, there's no, black or white answers. But if that cable car's AI is controlled by the government, is controlled by a company, you have no control. Imagine if I'm driving a Tesla, and the Tesla decides if I should leave or not. That sounds super scary. But I want to the AI agent is only loyalty to me, right? So that my car only loyalty to me, my AI agent only loyalty to me, but your AI agent only loyalty to you. So this is back to the world that we're living right now. Everybody is sovereign. You are own your own identity, your own data. You are individual. You're not defined by the government or by a big company or a law. You are yourself. You are the center of your world. Right? I'm the center of my world. So that's, I think, the beautiful part of the decentralization. And I believe this is the future of the AI. The decentralized AI is definitely going to be the most popular thing, even though today it's very early and very few people talking about it. But I believe this is a big trend.
I'm actually very curious about, Dorothy, how would you think about that? How would you see AI? Is AI dangerous, or how do you think that we can keep it from the large company perspective? What is your perspective on that?
My daughter asks me this all the time. In fact, she's like, but if a student uses AI, when are you going to learn? And it's a very valid question too. I think, with every technology, there's certainly pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, but particularly with AI at companies like Microsoft, and I'm sure at Amazon and many as well, we really think a lot about safe AI. And Microsoft has this framework of responsible AI. And that starts with the governance aspect of it. Obviously, there's also a framework for sort of hardening the AI model, and we have AI red teams that focuses on, just like any other red team, on finding attack patterns, new issues with the model. But then also it's a mindset, right? You apply the same zero trust framework to AI agents, for example. What's the identity of an AI agent? An AI agent can take on personal identity and can take on an app identity. So you have to apply that sort of zero trust framework to agents in the multi-agent world. And then I think it also goes to governance. It goes to transparency. You can trust it more if you see what's going on. And so when I deploy an AI agent, I want to see its reasoning. In fact, I think it's actually safer, in a way, more than an employee. When my junior employee, and I say this in this room little, it's happening right now. I actually have an intern that we had a data security issue that involved an unsuspecting innocent intern. But humans make mistakes. You don't know what's going on in their head. with agents, you can actually see the reason. So I always tell people, similar to when we said, in the early days of cloud, where people are like, oh, cloud's not secure. When you say, well, that PC on your desk, you don't know what people have put in there. So I think trust, transparency, and a framework for inspecting and responsible AI is sort of really at the core of AI safety.
So, I'm also curious about Yifan's perspective, because you guys helping incubating a lot of early stage startups, right? But how those startups deal with the AI safety? And as the person yourself use, would you like to use the startup products, or you prefer like product more from big corporate? Yeah.
It's a great question. Having seen the inside of many startups, I do have to caution everyone, right? Especially if you're going to be putting very sensitive data into like early stage products, just be aware of what you share. Because truthfully, startups are very small companies. They have few resources, right? It's usually just a handful of maybe just the co-founders or some of the early team members. So it's not going to be as secure, right? It's not going to work as well as many of the more established products. So if you are worried about safety and security, myself, I'm a startup person, but I would definitely encourage you, right, to look at more established products. And I think about this myself for our startups. When we look at vendors for my companies and our startups, right, we really evaluate whether it's the right approach to go with a smaller company or a larger company for this exact reason. But I'll say on the AI, right, is AI good or bad question. Personally, I think, the AI wave is here, right? What are we gonna do? Are we gonna just stop using all AI products, stop developing AI? I truly think that having AI technology and building that here and having some say in how it's built is very important, because that's the only way that we're gonna be able to defend, right, against many of the coming things, the waves and the issues with AI. For example, right now we see a huge influx of cybersecurity AI startups. We think because now LLMs have gotten so good at interpreting code that now it enables a new wave of cybersecurity startups that previously that functionality just wasn't possible before. And that's very important, because now those founders can be working on the defensive side, right, to protect us against many of the new vulnerabilities that are coming out because of AI. So it's two sides of the same coin, and we tend to focus on that at AI2 Incubator. We do have a policy around not investing in companies that we think are going to be a net negative on the world. And obviously none of us can predict perfectly, but there are certain things that we will not invest in. We turn down investments even in very rapidly growing companies that maybe add more spam to the world, or could be used for not so great purposes. And that's just one part of what we do, right? We think there's responsibility to being AI product creators in this age, and we try to do our best. But honestly, yeah, there's a lot of issues that come up, especially if you're trying to build things and iterate quickly. Yeah.
Thank you. Also, Greg, so I know that you work for large companies and you personally also angel investors, right? So the same question to you, what is your perspective on that? How would you choose the company you want to invest, the product you want to use in terms of the AI safety?
So for me, the product that I want to invest in, that's the question, right? In terms of safety, etc. I try to think about a firm balance between, how much is it really helping humanity versus creating some sort of chaos, as I can describe it. I think overall, when I think about AI, there are a lot of good that we can extract out of it. When I think about how we can accelerate, drug discovery, how we can really enhance creativity. And by the way, I'm a very big sci-fi person. So if you've seen Iron Man, tell me why a genius felt the need to create an intelligent system next to him as an assistant. And to me, this was to augment his creativity. And I think we have a path there. Some concerns I have is around the people with bad intentions that are having access to AI. How do we counteract that? How do we get more people involved? Right now, I see heavy hands-on participation from mostly tech folks in the world of AI. I want to see more of the non-tech community take part of this. Psychologists, lawyers, policymakers that are, or even domain experts to really understand how this tool can affect society as a whole. Economists even, who have a deep understanding of human behavior and really can predict how people's behavior will shift into the future for based on AI presence to see if it's a net positive or a net negative. And if net negative, what are the mitigation strategies that can be put in place to make sure that all, not just one, benefit from the good stuff that AI has to bring. So I love to invest into the adventures where we are tackling the things we deemed impossible to solve in the past. Things that are very difficult, but now with AI, we are able to tackle it a little bit more efficiently, faster, and at a more scalable way. So that makes me very hopeful overall.
Now let's turn to Dorothy. So for professionals in the large organization, what's a practical first step they can make to bring lab innovation into their company?
I feel like, Yifan, you actually already answered this really well in terms of the practical first step in bringing into production. I mean, the first step is really just working backwards from your customer. Know your customer's needs extremely well, not just sort of at a high level. They need they need to do fitness, but like what makes them tick? I love the loss aversion function, right? And also understand.
Again.
I know. My voice doesn't carry as well, so I really do have to shout. Let me try. Is it better? No.
Bluetooth pairing.
Yeah, now this works. So I think that's sort of somewhat obvious, but I think the other thing that you really have to think about is the mindset of your team, especially in this day and age. Super important for your team to have that curiosity, to have that growth mindset, if you will, and really obsess over the customer needs and be courageous to do things that don't scale, right? And, you also mentioned something that I love from Paul Grant, that do things that don't scale and just obsess over doing 1 or 3 things that make your customer love and make you differentiate. There's lots of startups you're competing with, probably if you have a good idea, there are 10 other people that have good ideas. So what makes your product really differentiate? And I think that comes with the deep understanding of your customers and understanding at that edge of just where technology can go, what your customer needs, and where you're building the differentiation for your team.
Thank you so much. Let's circle back to Greg again. So you are a top voice at LinkedIn. You post a lot of really AI-related posts that tons of views. So I'm really curious. So there's so many AI buzzwords right now. So which one do you think is overhyped or which one is underrated but is very important?
Man, buzzwords. I think a lot about buzzwords, and there are quite a bit, so I'll vaguely mention a few. One that comes to mind right now is AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. I think this is a concept that a lot of companies, a lot of people are fighting about what the definition actually is. until we have unanimous agreement on what this is, you will have pockets of creators creating their own version of what AGI is. And therefore, to me, it's a buzzword that when you peel the onion, when you look into the layers, you're really figuring out or finding out that what people really need are systems that are relatable, reliable, that are secure and safe and trustworthy, and that actually solve a particular problem. Another that I can think about is the agents. Everybody talks about agents, etc. Basically, I can be a little bit of a downer here and say those are wrappers around LLM calls, and they fail when they come across multi-turns, multi-participation of agents, etc. When you don't put some good memories around them, or even you overload them with tool use, etc. There is another one, RAG. Everybody wants to do retrieval augmented generation, right? So a lot of those things are buzzwords to me, but when I think about the things that really matter, the one thing I can think about right now that's really hot is evaluation. Observability is another one. So when I think about evaluation, to me, this is the prime thing that allows you to align the LLM's capability or the agent's capability with the human intent or human output that they're looking for. I love to hear more about what are the different frameworks that can be put together, whether it's A/B test, whether it's feedback loop from humans, or some red teaming that it can be put together to make sure that we have the right eval. And I love to hear about more about the evaluation metrics that we can put together beyond just performance. We're talking about latency, cost per inference, robustness of the model, trustfulness, privacy. I could go on and on about the things that folks should focus more and more. At some point, I believe that 20% of all your AI systems is really AI. The other 80% is really the infrastructure, the operations, all the things around it that supports AI. And what are the things that we can do to make sure that this powerful tool is effective? And those are the things that I feel like we should be talking about more. They're not being talked about more. Take reinforcement learning, for example. Again, I could go on and on. To me, reinforcement learning with human feedback. This is something, even reinforcement learning policies, this is something that's an active study right now. What are the best ways for an LLM to learn how people think, to learn how people learn, right? So those are the things I'd like to hear more of. So let me stop there because I could talk more.
Thank you. Now let's turn to Robert. So multi-agent systems are still very early. So what practical advice you would give to founders who want to start with building agents today?
I think Greg just mentioned something really important, and I totally agree with that. And while a lot of buzzwords are talking about how to build a multi-agent system and the workflow versus agent, or those called the prompt engineering, but recently called the context engineering, I would say all of those are mostly, they are very important, but the buzzword. It actually shows a secret of the industry that nobody, even including OpenAI and a lot of the so-called AI companies, nobody know what's a real effective way to build a real AI application, and everybody are trying to have exploring, and so someday there's a new concept come out, somebody change a little bit, and they just have a new name. Look at that RAG, R-A-G, it has so many graph RAGs, many different RAGs, right? But I just, this morning when I come here, I I see one of the Twitter by one of the Chinese founders called the Llama Index. So they're pretty good frameworks. And basically the founder said, look, there's a new research say that if you only have like 1,000 PDF for the papers, the best way to do the RAG is just a grep, right? Just do a grep, do a search, and use a search result as a context for the AI. So that's proof. There's a paper say that this is actually the best way to do those research papers. anything else like the vector search, the graph, build a lot of many tens of different racks, actually not that effective than this one, which is actually intuitive, right? Imagine before you have search engine, before you have all of those, what do you do if you want to do a research? You basically scan through, you basically use a search with a grid to find some keyword, and then you find different pieces from those articles, and then you read those kind of related part of the papers, and then you kind of have the result, right? So it's pretty intuitive. So AI do the same, right? But I think those are the buzzwords, but what I really think valuable are those tools that AI going to use. If we feel like the ChatGPT is so powerful, or the Grok from the Twitter is so powerful, the reason why we feel it's valuable and powerful is because it actually access to many different tools, right? So the AI, the inference of the large language model, and probably just like 30% of all those kind of results, right? 70% or even more are from the tools it uses, from the data it can access, and from the infrastructure that deploy those applications. Right? I think for the startup, especially for a new startup, we want to do this kind of build this new AI applications. If we kind of fall into the trap that dealing with all those kind of unmatured large language model, unmatured like agent or prompt engineering, context engineering, whatever. So someday when OpenAI update that model, and we will find all our advantages gone. There's no model there. But if we focus on the tools that AI can use, if we focus on the infrastructure that can deploy a full user experience for the users, so that will, I believe this will last much longer, right? And especially for the tools, I think I want to add in some more specific tips if somebody here building applications. The tools, I think the important principle for building those tools are make those tools do one thing and do it well. And make a lot of tools that can be composed to building more stuff. And make the AI to do this kind of composability. So basically you provide AI 100 tools, and give the AI some rules and some certain context, let the AI creatively to reuse those tools to compose that into some kind of bigger tools. Rather than you write a giant, super powerful tool that only do specific works. So this potentially going to have a lot more potentials. So this is actually what we're doing. Right? So right now we are building a framework. We're taking all our lessons and experience, and we want to put that into a framework, application framework, not the prompt framework, to help the builders to focus on their real skills and real expertise on the domain, rather than thinking how to build an agent, how to make the agent kind of work with each other better, or how to dealing with different kind of models. So the models right now, they're still in early stage. Eventually, I believe at some certain day, most of those models are probably going to be very similar or even the same. But the real skill are your tools, right? So this is also very intuitive. Imagine for our human, we access to the same education, same book, all the knowledge we can basically, they're the same. Everybody of us can do that. But we have personal skills, we have personal experience. So that makes us as a human to stand out. Not everybody are the same. Right? Same for the AI. Models are just brands. So large companies, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, they eventually going to make that closer and closer. But each of our startup new project, we can focus on something that is unique, that makes us stand out.
Cool, thank you. So the next question I would like to ask all the speakers. I know all of you guys are very, very technical, but for the founders here or professionals without a technical background, what is the best way to start experience with AI agent without getting too overwhelmed?
One thing I think about here is that you do not want to boil the ocean. Dorothy, you said it very well. You need to focus on a customer problem. In the sense of a non-technical person, I think there are way too many tools already that exist that can help you tinker around things. So you should really think about starting small, or what I would call in phases, for example. If you need to figure out what this world of AI looks like, basically, like, for example, a car, I don't need to know exactly what the engine looks like. For example, an LLM, if you're a non-tech founder, you don't have to understand weights, parameters, KV divergence, fine-tunings, all these fancy concepts. But you can start playing with no-code tools, for example, as phase one. There are things like Make, Lovable, or Zapier that can help you put things together very quickly on a simple workflow that you're trying to do. For example, summarizing emails, etc. The second phase, you can think about something a little bit deeper. For example, if you want to understand how agents work, their limitations, etc., you can use some sort of hosted framework. For example, OpenAI Assistant or LangChain Hub that can, with very little configuration, help you put something together for something very simple. Right now, you can try to understand when you change some of the parameters, how does the agent's behavior evolve and change with those little tweaks that you do. And in the next phase, you want to start thinking about the critical workflows that really matter to you, whether it's automating sales calls or doing follow-up reach outs to customers, etc. Gather some of the very good use cases that matter to you and start thinking about how you want to involve more of the technical team members that you have to see how you can start putting robust production systems, even if it's small or very focused, start to put them together. And lastly, as a non-tech person, I think you are the most important person who will bring evaluation metrics to the room. You are the person who will start asking those things like, is this solution saving me time? Can I trust the output of these agents? Is this system reliable? All of these evaluation metrics that you can put in place are there for you to put together and align on with the bigger team so that you can go from crawling to walking to running in phases. So don't boil the ocean, start with a very simple concept and then go from there.
I completely agree with everything that Greg said. I also add, I think right now is the best time for a non-technical person to become a founder, actually. Actually, this is one of our theses at AI2 Incubator. We can actually work with solo founders. They can come in as a domain expert in an industry, and we actually help them be paired with an experienced AI engineer or an expert to be able to build products. And this has worked for us over and over again because one of our theses is really around vertical applications of AI, especially in these domains that have not been touched even by maybe the previous wave of technology. We have built companies now in mortgage, in manufacturing compliance, in immigration, in professional services, and often the insight of what to build, right, comes from someone who is a domain expert in that area. I always like to offer concrete examples, right? We had a founder come in who had deep mortgage expertise and really wanted to build something in the mortgage underwriting space and had a very particular idea of where an AI agent should sit in the entire process of mortgage underwriting, right? And counterintuitively, it was not directly going after replacement of mortgage underwriters, but rather to sit in a different place in this stack so that they could actually collect more data and get more reps before getting the mortgage applications in front of the underwriters, right? So that type of depth of understanding and knowledge of an industry, along with the connections to be able to sell legitimately into an industry, makes you as a non-technical co-founder extremely valuable in today's day and age. And it turns out that actually Seattle is a great place because there's lots of talented AI engineers that often left to their own devices might create another dev tool or another observability stack But we're able to pair them with these domain experts to really build things that are very important out in the real world in these massive markets that are available. Another example is I recently actually just invested in a founder who doesn't come from tech. She actually comes from fashion. She's a director of merchandising and buying for a fashion brand. And she has a very unique perspective in terms of where in, sorry, thank you. Where in, it's all down. Anyways, yeah, fashion, AI.
Bluetooth
Okay,
pairing.
perfect. Yeah, just invested in a solo founder. The first investment actually out of our new fund at AI2, we give $100,000 for a solo founder to come in and really help to pair them with the co-founder where once the team is built and we start to see some traction, we're able to put in the full $600,000 into a company and provide them with a lot of support to build out that product and get them to the full multi-million-dollar seed round. So my pitch is really right. If you are non-technical, today it's easier than ever to actually deepen on your domain expertise. Don't worry about learning everything about LLMs. You can and you should definitely play with tools and use lovable and built prototypes. But I would focus more deeply, right? Question yourself in terms of what are you seeing in the area that you are an expert in, and what would you build, right, if you could actually solve your own massive problems.
So before we move to Q&A, I would like to do a quick lightning round. 1 or 2 sentences max per person, okay? So the first question is, first AI tool you check daily. What's the first AI tools you check daily? What do you use daily?
My obvious answer is Answers D5. it is because I do use it a lot for work.
I would add to ChatGPT. So honestly, I think ChatGPT, even it's very popular, I think it's still very underrated. So I spend hours to talk to ChatGPT, and now I ask my teams, every single person who have a solutions or have something need to talk to ChatGPT. Treat ChatGPT as your peer, not a tool, not a search thing, not some kind of just a Q&A. It's just treat that as a peer, smart, intelligent peer, know a lot of stuff. So this is, so I spend a lot of time. I believe everybody should spend more time and to experience the future.
Yeah, my life is a bit more chaotic than this. So, okay, at work, I have internal tools that I use to accelerate what I do. So I'm in the product management field, so I use that as a peer at work. Okay, outside of that, I talk to ChatGPT a lot for things that I cannot go fast enough with the cold start. I want to kind of jot down a quick measure of brainstorming about an idea I have or simple questions I have. I also talk a lot to Notebook LM to organize my world. So again, I'm a content creator and I read a lot of articles and try to make sense of all of that. Notebook LM helps me a lot, go deeper about research and things like that. And lastly, for news, really figuring out what's going on. Perplexity is another one. I hooked it up on my WhatsApp to give me news every day. So first thing I wake up and I look at, look at what's going on. So I tailored Perplexity to what I want to hear about what's happening about the world. So I have multiple tools I talk to every day, but yeah.
I don't have anything to add except in ChatGPT you can schedule workflows, and every morning I have it tell me about all my meetings each day, so it writes all my meeting notes and backgrounds, and also summarize all the specific news I want to know, especially around Seattle startup fundraising.
Cool. ChatGPT definitely the top one, top choices. So the next question is, if you're not working in AI, what other field would you be building in?
So So I don't know if it's like, if I had a choice, if I really wanted to do something, I'd be a movie director. I like script writing. I love storytelling. I love to dream about the future. I love to dream about what humanity could. So if I had a choice, if I weren't in this space right now, if I had a choice, if I weren't an industrial engineer who started in manufacturing and then made his way through tech, I'd be a movie director and sci-fi particularly, so that I can inspire folks on what could be.
If I'm not work with AI, the answer is clear to me because blockchain technology, because I have been doing this for over 10 years, and AI is actually my side job, right? I still many on the blockchain technology.
I guess before coming to AI2, I was in real estate technology, prop tech, and also worked at Fly Homes post-acquisition for a little bit. So probably still something around real estate. I still have rental properties. I do like, some of them are short-term rental, long-term rental, probably something there.
Well, I think AI is, I've done a few different things, but if I were not in cybersecurity, I would say, the other thing that I am tangentially involved with, just because my partner is very passionate about it, and I've seen the results, is in medical research. And so using technology, using AI and data, a lot of my past work is in data as well. And I think we're just at the cusp of so many breakthroughs in understanding the immune system and using that to help turn cancer, maybe not entirely cure, but to turn it into something like AIDS, where it's starting to become manageable.
The last question. What is your favorite book or podcast?
I'll start.
Well, I love The Choir. Many of you guys probably have heard The Choir, and they're one of them is our local Seattle guy. And it's just these two guys, for those of you who don't know, The Choir is a business podcast. They tell stories of story companies like Google and NVIDIA, and actually my favorite is Hermes and LVMH. They do such a good job telling the story, going really deep behind the companies. At the end, they summarize the 7 powers. They use the 7 power framework to talk about what made these companies really stand out. So I think for every startup, a founder or your professional, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of lessons we can learn from these companies. My favorite book that I'm reading right now, and it's partly because I'm in AI, it's called A Brief History of Intelligence. And it really starts out with understanding how intelligence came into being from millions and millions of years ago, how intelligence even started in when we were just singular cell, to then fish, to mammal, and there's a lot we're doing today. AI is just mimicking some of that. And I think with AI, we can even also learn more about our own brain. So, great book.
So for one of the podcasts I listen to a lot, I listen to VC podcasts a lot, but one that's product focused is Lenny's podcast. Brings in lots of industry leaders in the product world, gives different perspective about like how they were able to scale, how they were able to zone in on a key problem, and then for pivot, they explore so many things, growth, design patterns, and anything that's focused around the user experience. I really love to listen to that podcast. On a book, one of my favorite books is Thinking in Bets by Annie Dukes. Thinking in Bets really sticks with me, and I think about it every day. To summarize for you, it's nothing is ever black or white. There's the gray area. This book helps you navigate in all aspects of your life. As humans, we tend to want to cope to certainty. This book helps you thrive in the world of uncertainty. And I highly recommend that book for all of us who are in technology or not, or kind of like trying to explore what next steps they should do, whether it's exploring it with the things they can control versus what they cannot control that she calls luck, which is good or bad. So really deep dig into this book. So it really inspired me and keeps me going every day on everything that I do.
Oh man, I love these recommendations. Fun fact, actually my chief customer officer from my last company is the wife of Ben Gilbert from Acquired. So I think my favorite books are probably by Adam Grant. So two very impactful books in my life. One was his Originals book about creativity and how to become a more creative person. It's funny, I've always been in startups, but I never really thought of myself as a visionary, creative person. I thought of myself as more of an execution person. Maybe this is the Chinese immigrant thing, like growing up in Indiana, but it just wasn't how I envisioned myself. And I encourage anyone who doesn't believe that you are a creative person to read Originals, because the whole message is around how creativity is not just something you're born with, but it's a skill that you can absolutely master and work on every day. And his new book is called Think Again, which I also love. It's very relevant to my life. It's about iteration and changing your mind and how to change paths when things are not working.
I have to confess that I don't listen to any podcast because I think it takes too much time. And I don't read a lot of books, but I like some books from time to time. But recently I really liked one of the old book called Solving Individual. So that's kind of reflect what I'm doing. That I believe that every people need to be self-sufficient. Not depend on government, not depend on large companies. And I'm also actually writing a book and try to be the sovereign intelligent, which is expected to publish next year. It's basically talking about how to control our own identity and the AI in the future.
All right, thank you so much, really appreciate it. Now let's open the floor to the audience so we can take Q&A. All right.
So much for everyone. All your information really inspiring. I really appreciate that. So if it's okay, I can ask a question for Yifan. And you see so many startup company. How do you see which is the effective, successful way for the startup company reach out to the target market? I think it's kind of like difficult for a lot of startup company how to reach out, their end user. And questions to the Dorothy and Greg for the entry level.
I sat in our intern end of internship presentation session not long ago, maybe a few weeks ago, and I was so impressed with our interns who were presenting that came from some of the best colleges in the country. These folks that are now entering or graduating from colleges, they are AI natives, right? And they have an edge compared to the average engineer that may not be using Cursor to be 10 times as productive. So my advice for anyone that is coming in or graduating, studying computer science, I think actually do study computer science, study math, and these skills that you gain allow you to collaborate with AI much more effectively than someone that didn't.
Yeah, and I'll add on top of that too is have them, I would say my best advice is to fall in love with hard problems early. You cannot fall in love with hard problems early enough. Like in college, like find the things that are, the hair on fire concepts in the world that you are. If it's IT, computer science, etc., there's always been something that's really difficult in the field that you're studying that's not yet solved. And if you become a domain expert as early as possible, you fall in love with these problems early enough, by the time you graduate, you become the expert or more knowledgeable than most. And then as Dorothy said, these young ones, they are already aware of how to use AI tools. So now you have a domain expert that is young in his or her career who now also already knows how to use AI as an assistant. Think about how powerful that can be. So hard problems will never stop to exist in this world. And the sooner you fall in love with them and fall in love in how to solve them, the better off you are.
Next question. Oh, so hard to predict.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, thank you. Quick question for Robert. I'm very fascinated with the concept of the decentralization of the blockchain. So my question is, can you share us a story or real case? What kind of thing, either your products or maybe the cases you have done to leverage the centralization of a blockchain to do something? A story or something, a real practice. Thank you.
Cool. I will kind of combine this together with the first question because that one I haven't answered. So they're basically related. And first of all, I think I really want to first ask the first question first. I think first you asked the first question is how to reach the customers. So I really like one of the programs article called "Do Things Not Scale." Do things that not scale. And that sounds counterintuitive. It's basically if you are building a startup, don't try to scale to 1 million customers immediately. Don't try to reach 1 million customers. Instead, do things that is not scale. Fix your own problem. Talk to tens of customers by yourself. It's not scale until at some certain days, I feel it will automatically scale. Once you can solve, for example, imagine you can solve your own problem, and then there's tens of other people similar to you. Okay, now you solve tens of those problems. And then you will find, okay, actually it's much bigger. People are thinking in a similar way. So it's always going to be, even in the worst case, it's a niche market. However, sometimes the niche market becomes bigger. So that's the same thing applied to the decentralized AI, because AI is still early stage, and decentralization, nobody knows what decentralization is. If I try to kind of try to get 1 million users try to use decentralized apps, decentralized AI, probably not, right? No matter how much scale, how many things I do, it's not be there yet. But I feel that myself, I need data privacy, right? So one of the real example is, for example, I say I chat to ChatGPT a lot, but as a person who in the industry, I know there's a lot of things I cannot tell ChatGPT because it's all my data, all my information is actually uploaded to OpenAI, and OpenAI also admitted they could tell the government, and if I'm discussing something criminal with OpenAI, that could be getting in trouble, right? So. But AI become more and more important. I really want to share my business secret and some of my thoughts or some of my confusion with this AI and try to get the answer. But how do I, take the advantage of the new AI technology and not compromise my identity, not giving all my personal data to somebody that I cannot trust or potentially could be hurt me in the future, right? So that's why we need a service. That first of all, the very basic part is called identity. It try to protect your identity. The system even gets some of your data, some of your profile data cannot profile. They don't know who you are. It just know that as one of the random hashed numbers, so they cannot match you. The second part is your data is not leaving. Some of the most important data is not leaving your computer or is not going to upload it to large corporate or somebody else. So those are all the real use cases that people are take for granted in the beginning, or today even you not want to take for granted. There's not much service that you can use, but eventually when more and more people wake up and see this problem, you already did this, and this could become something a lot of people want to use. Hope this answers your question.
Thank you. All right, so, I see you a couple times.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very interested in the decentralized AI, like AI democratization, right? So I know these days that big companies working in this AI infrastructure, AI framework space, like a Copilot, Cursor, some company called Magic Dev, right? they are all trying to compete in the space. I'm just wondering, as a startup, if you are interested in this area, how could you to compete with the giant? That's my question.
This is a question. I think it's you don't need to compete with the giant because, for example, large company they try to centralize everything because by design they are not designed for decentralization. So that's why we, as a startup, we always have this great opportunity that we can focus on something that is going to, that they will not touch, right? Even someday, imagine for someday Microsoft decided to give up all their centralized service and they decide to use a decentralized identifier. Yes, that could potentially create a big kind of competition for us, but I still treat this as a big success. That basically probably that from the business side, the company cannot compete with them, but from the other side, that's the technology and the trend that you believe is a bigger success. Just like, for example, today Unix system, right? So this is the menu system that Microsoft uses Windows, and at the time people thinking Unix is a better system, but it's not really a success. But today you see Unix is everywhere. Every of our iPhone, Android is actually running a kernel from the Unix. And where is Windows? I work for Microsoft. I haven't used Windows for over a decade. And so even Microsoft is still very successful on the business side, but I believe the soul of the Unix has a huge win. That's what I think.
All right, so one last question.
I got lucky, thank you. Okay, so just a little premise here. I do many things, but my background's in computer engineering, and I remember when programming languages would come out, and the next year they'd say, we want someone with like 10 years of experience with that language. It's like preposterous, right? ChatGPT came out in November of 2022. So it's really hard for there to be experts, I think, in this. So I just want to premise my question with that. The question, I wrote it down, so I'll stop rambling. So LLMs are routinely hailed as thinking, right? But they hallucinate, they lack real-world understanding, and they operate under sort of mathematical constraints, right? They're pattern matching. In practice, we've seen decreased code quality and security vulnerabilities. So Dorothy, while you were at Microsoft, there was a study that was released. 45% of AI-generated code contains serious security flaws. And this is true across big models too. So my question is, if such tools, when promoted to non-experts, which I think basically we're all still learning everything we can about these, who bears the responsibility of making sure we don't make bad investment decisions, bad building decisions? How are we making sure we're clear-eyed about these things and not getting over our skis with what the technology can actually do?
I mean, I think ultimately it is up to all of us are using coding assistance in some way. I'm part of the cybersecurity group, and my engineers are using GitHub, Copilot, and Asian Mode to be building this. And what they tell me is that, yeah, it makes mistakes. You've got to be able to really understand the code. And so if I would step back a little bit, I think back to the original questions about what's happening with computer science. Engineers, I think coding, whether it's going back to assembly, then higher abstraction languages, and now natural language, it really is about problem solving. I think what I am seeing, and what you guys probably know Andrew Ng, very wise person who's been in that space for a long time, that we're seeing it's sort of the next evolution of the programming paradigm. Whereas we were programming close to the metal using assembly, then we moved to abstraction. Even C and Java are all abstraction. Then this is the next evolution. And in every step of the way, it doesn't resolve the person's ability to really understand actually what is going on, is the problem you're trying to solve. I think what we have done, what you have mindfully pointed out, is that we've taken the barrier, like the barrier for entry is so low, that at the end of the day, that person produces the code, the end result that is meeting the customer has to be responsible. In my case, ultimately the buck stops with me. So in our case, I think we have to be very conscious. What you're pointing out is we have to be very conscious about training our junior employees. And so things like code review, those things cannot go away. If anything, that becomes even more important.
A quick analogy here. I mean, we have so many products that are existing out there, and I'm trying to respond to your question of who's responsible. Well, things like alcohol, they exist, and then you hear a lot of things about drinking responsibly, right? So who's really responsible for over-consuming myself, deciding to over-consume alcohol and then hurting myself? So there are a lot of like products out there that have terms and conditions, and as a consumer, I think you also have responsibility on how to use that product. And I think the who's responsible is both ways, right? You have the manufacturer of the product that needs to educate more of the population. So in the case of LLMs, beyond saying that, oh, it just guessed what the next best word is, what else can we tell the population about what this tool can be and cannot be, or should not be, etc. And then on the other side, the person consuming as well, there needs to be a certain effort in terms of how to use this product responsibly as well. I was hearing about this article, I don't know if it's true, I need to dig into it, that we are now starting to speak or write like ChatGPT. It should be the other way around. What that tells me is that a lot of times our brain gets lazy and we want something else to do all this stuff for us. To read this, kind of like, I've taken a step back. Like, I can read a text right now and tell you that someone didn't do a good job at eliminating AI wordism in that text, block of text. Now to see that now is going to be even harder for me to check that, because now humans are now speaking and writing more like ChatGPT. It's a little bit alarming to me. So to me, it evokes the need for all of us to want to have this thing be used responsibly. It should not be just for the manufacturer of the tool to tell you how to use it responsibly. It needs to be on the other way around as well.
Cool, thank you. Before we wrap up today, I would love to invite our sponsors do a quick 5-minute presentation, and I would love to invite all our speakers return to your seat. And after that, we will do a group picture, okay? Please stay for a couple minutes. Thank you.
I might not use the mic at all, just so it doesn't come in and out all the time. It's like to be an outlier on the Gaussian curve, because I'm from the semiconductor industry, and I'm listening to all of you experts talk about the applications and the end use of things. And I just thought we'd have a little bit of fun, and we'd also talk to those of you who are thinking about careers and moving forward out of college and things that you might want to do. So I thought I'd talk about going from silicon to AI and playing with sand. If you would hit the next, please. Confucius once said, from a grain of sand in the pearl comes. Now, he was incorrect. Pearls don't come from a grain of sand, but he may have had foresight and not realized that he did. Because, next. If you think about silicon wafers, they come from sand. We take sand, we purify it, we take it and molten it into an ingot and pull it out, we slice it, we lap it, we polish it, and we make a silicon wafer. Lo and behold, we're starting on the trek towards a different type of pearl. It has many uses. Silicon wafers, ingots, wafers for semiconductors, wafers for solar cells, and then of course PV modules. So you can see how sand actually has a lot of value. Next slide. Of course, a 10-year-old will tell you sandcastles are still more fun than any of this, but that's okay. Next slide. Silicon wafer formed the basis of everything that you're doing. Next hit, please. It goes through a very complex process where we take a wafer, and smart design engineers tell us how we should build something in 3D like we're building with Lego in such a way that we move electrons where you want them to go. That's really what we're told, and we have to go through a whole variety of steps from preparing things on the surface to adding in other atoms so that we can change electrical characteristics, to doing all sorts of diffusion, integration, from a variety of different things, and that's just at the wafer level. And then we have to take that, and each of those dies have to be packaged. And we end up with the wonderful chips that our speakers are talking about in terms of the applications. Next. The main chips that you're going to use in AI, GPUs, NPUs, TPUs, ASICs, and fully programmable grid arrays. And the beauty of those is they don't have to mean anything to you because, next slide, you're only worried about the AI part. We give you some hardware and you'll go off and you'll do the various design levels at the next level up and look at the applications and make AI work for you. Next slide. And those include things like cloud computing, smartphones, autonomous vehicles, and we heard the lady from Microsoft talk about healthcare and the great applications that are there. And you can see just some of them. I don't have to tell you because you're all experts, or at least very engaged in this room to understand these. So next slide. So why would I come from semiconductors to talk to you guys? As I said, we're on the kind of far end of the Gaussian curve for this thing. Well, we are the most advanced industry in the world, period. We work at levels that nobody else does. Leading edge transistors have components that are 1/10,000th of the thickness of a human hair. We talk in atoms where other people talk in molecules, okay? So if you're looking for a challenge, an intellectual challenge, a challenge that's going to push you to really be creative, this is a great industry to be in. We are the true nanotechnology people. I heard one of the wonderful speakers talk about being a sci-fi freak, and we all know how much nanotechnology plays into everything we hear in sci-fi. Nanotechnology is really just going to be a conglomeration of a lot of different industries all working at this nano level, and we play in it daily. The working features we have are so minute and fragile. I'm going to give you an example. If you look at modern DRAM, 3D NAND, any of these other memory technologies, which you've all heard, even if you're not familiar with at a very scientific level, they have features on them that we are frequently asked to do things with, like cleaning. And when you're asked to clean, you're asked to deal with things that have a width to height ratio, known as the aspect ratio, that go anywhere up to 100 to 1. So to put it in perspective, next one, please. The Dubai Tower, the tallest building in the world, has a ratio of 9 to 1. Its base is 1 unit, its height is 9 more. You would have to multiply that by 11 and be asked to clean the windows. Think about it. Very, very, very tall structures with very, very narrow spaces in between. And there's a challenge. How do you, for example, clean that, get your chemistry in, get it out again, rinse it, and get it dry without causing damage? Because these structures are very, very, very sensitive. So those are huge challenges for engineers. And we cannot fail. And I think that's also something that for all of you who are engineering students, or scientists, physicists, chemists, who might be thinking about, again, challenge that's a little different. We're in a must-win industry. If we fail, half of these things don't take place. That's not to say that there are not incremental gains that are made through the programming and design of the bigger systems, but eventually you hit a wall. And the fact is, the hardware at the very fundamental level offsets a lot of that. So it's really good from a challenge perspective, please. Now, no one talked about money today, so I'm going to a little bit. The AI market is the exploding market. If you went to any of the big semiconductor conferences this year, the message was clear. The next drivers for the next 10 to 20 years are going to be AI and cloud computing. That's what's driving our whole industry. And the incremental gains that we used to have on what's called the front end or the transistor end of things can't happen the same way anymore. Moore's law, which you've probably all heard of at least once in your life, isn't going to hold. And so now the challenge is in when we put all of these devices into a package, how do we make them more efficient? So we're looking at how we integrate things so that some of the chips you will see that you're actually putting into your machines for your AI are going to look quite different. I draw your attention to 2030. At 2030, the semiconductor market will pass $1 trillion. Okay? If you look at the numbers on the bottom, they represent AI. So right around now, we're about $94 billion. By 2030, that will be 336 trillion. If you put that in perspective, this is data that shows it will account for 40% of all semiconductor sales will be AI related. So everything that you heard today in terms of the importance and the value, to put it into a real dollars and cents figure, it's huge. And the most interesting thing is by 2040, there's some disagreement on how big the market, the whole semiconductor market will be, but it may be between $3 and $4 trillion. But the most fascinating thing is from 2030 to 2034, in that 4 to 5 year period, AI is going to triple in terms of the market value. It will be almost $1 trillion by itself 10 years from now. So stop and think about it. Where the whole industry, which has been going for how long, is going to hit a 2030, 5 years later, just the AI portion will be close to $1 trillion by itself. So this isn't going away, this is huge. And as I said, for most people's careers, which can be anywhere from 10 to 30 years, this will be a big portion of what you do. Next slide, please. Why would you want to play in AI if you live here or if you live somewhere else? Or what's the advantage? Well, AI by market shows you that North America is still the biggest and will be the biggest market share for quite some time. At the moment, we're about 37% of the market. That will go to 44%. Europe, believe it or not, is second. Asia Pacific will probably increase just because of these numbers here, but will stay solid, and then Latin America and Middle East will decline relative to the rest of the industry. Big part of the problem, the biggest challenge we face is talent. In a poll done in the industry of industry leaders, they were asked what is the biggest two challenges that they have right now in the industry. One was tariffs, which is just a temporary thing, but the other 40%, which was the biggest single thing, was getting and retaining talent. It's not for everybody because it is a hard industry to work in, and because it requires people to be willing to really, really think and work hard. So there is a huge opportunity, but we have to make sure that we have the people that are necessary. But I will tell you, it's also a very exciting time to be in the industry. I've been out of the industry for the last decade. I came back in because I see the opportunity both with the company that I'm working with now and with the industry in general. In some respects, this is like going back to the early 1990s when the CPUs started to take over in the market and there was big excitement and big growth. AI has huge potential, and we've heard also huge downfalls. But all we can do is make the chips, and then everybody else gets to apply them and figure what's the best way to use them. Next slide, please. So who are we? Well, we're just a company that's growing. ACM Research is a semiconductor capital equipment company. In other words, we make the tools that the OEMs use to make the chips. So, excuse me, the IDMs. So Intel's, Samsung's, TSMC's, companies like that have to be able to build that wafer structure I told you about, and that requires a whole bunch of capital equipment. We make equipment in that field. We were incorporated in the US in 1998, founded out in Fremont by a Chinese gentleman, David Wang. We're listed on the NASDAQ as of 2017. You can look at our stock. We have two manufacturing in Asia. We have worldwide customer sales and support. And as of next year, by the middle of next year, we expect to have manufacturing here in Portland down the road for equipment for the US market. We're a highly technical company. We have approximately 2,000 patents either issued or pending. And that's actually quite a lot for a company of our size. It's been around as long as we have. Next slide, please. And just to show you how we as a company have done, we have compound average growth of 53%. If you look from 2020 when COVID started, we were worth 157 million. We just upped our estimate. We'll be between somewhere around 900 million this year, with our long-term goal going recently from 3 billion to 4 billion. So this is a Chinese-American company, founded by a Chinese-American, but we are an American company, and we have facilities worldwide. Next slide, please. Oh, no, how did you, I don't know, we skip one?
The only thing
No,
that came up was
that's fine, that's fine. So this is just to show you where our facilities are. US is a headquarters in Fremont. We have sales, service, and soon in the process demonstration lab and manufacturing in Portland. We also have local offices in Phoenix, where I'm from. We have an office in Europe, Shanghai, where the biggest portion of our business is at present in manufacturing. We have in Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. So we are truly global in what we do. This is the facility up in Portland. We have about in production about 40,000 square feet that's going in. It's presently being kitted and fitted. We are also going to have about 5,000 square feet as a clean room for our customer demos, etc., etc. In China, we just produced made a very big company last year. We produced, we manufacture most of our equipment in China, and the facility we opened, which is one of 3 facilities we have in the Shanghai area, is 1.4 million square feet. So it's like a small city block. It has design, it has engineering, it has manufacturing, and it has demo and development support. That's increasing our manufacturing capacity by 2.5 times, increase our lab demo capacity by doing this by 10, by a factor of 10. Next slide, please. We play in all of the manufacturing areas of semiconductors. So if you just look at integrated circuits and break it down very simply, foundry and logic being the 2 business models, memory being another key component area, whether it's DRAM or NAND or SRAM or anything else. You have a variety of different structures in terms of their planarity, whether they're 3D or 2D. We play in the less, shall we say, standard areas like powers, MEMS, and RF devices, wafer level packaging, wafer manufacturing, which is that very first slide I showed you about making silicon wafers, and of course compound semiconductors. And there's a good lesson in some compound semiconductors, because for the longest time, the industry always said that's tomorrow's technology. So I do caution everybody when they look at things, like you heard the speakers talk today, think about whether something is truly going to be able to evolve into a long-term product or whether it'll just be niche. The areas that we play and all of those things I showed you, these are all of the different tool sets that we have capabilities to do. So we're not just a one-trick pony. We actually are expanding our portfolio of equipment so that we can cater to a whole variety of areas. Next slide, please. And so, I said I promised to try and keep this short, a little under 5 minutes, but I'm sorry. I just want you to take home a few key messages in your thinking, especially for those of you in college who are thinking about what do I want to do next. Semiconductor is a key enabler in technology, and I think everybody would agree with that. If we fail at the hardware, and it doesn't matter what you're going to try and do, you're going to hit limitations. AI is definitely the biggest driver for the foreseeable future. I would say probably for the next 20 years. Market opportunities are enormous, and we are going to need skilled people. And I'm very honored to be able to come and talk to you today in particular, because as the expanding role of the Asian market, in particular in China, and the innovation and creativity that's going on there are increased opportunities that will happen. And I think you will see a lot of the things that are taking place, be it tariffs or other political things, they come and go in waves, and usually they get resolved, and then there's even more opportunities. So I encourage you to keep that in mind. Great opportunities worldwide, not just here. And if you are looking at companies, look at companies that give you those opportunities if that's what you want. We're expanding because we see that opportunity. We have an owner who has vision and took a risk when others said it's not going to work, and stuck to his guns, and we now have a company that we do. We are going to be a key player in the industry. Watch our stock continues to go up, and that's usually a good sign that people have confidence in what you're doing. And we too, in the next year or two, are going to start needing people to help us with that, right? As we put manufacturing in the US, we're going to need those capabilities. So keep that in mind. And the very last thing, you hit the button one more time. Never underestimate the usefulness of sand, okay? For most of it, it's dirt and we don't want to deal with it, but what I wanted to try and show you is that all the things that you work on today, there's something goes on before it. It's a bit like the comment somebody says, somebody had to learn to walk so that I could learn to run. It's the same thing. What goes on at the hard level of making chips enables you to do the things that you want to do with AI.